Okay, welcome to the data section of this unit of General Maths 2. So the first thing that we're just going to cover is different types of data. So throughout the course we'll be looking at different data sets, and it's usually just one thing that we're considering in each case, but the data can fall into various categories. So I'll just sort of draw like a mind map of it. So we've essentially got two main types of data, and then each of these types will fall into two groups. So important that you understand the difference between these data types. So the first one is categorical. And that is essentially things that we can separate into different categories and then compare the amount of things in those categories. The other sort of data is numerical. And so this numerical data is essentially where we're looking at how many data measurements are in a particular group, but the actual data is a number. Okay, so just to sort of try and make this a little bit clearer, first we'll look at categorical. This type of data can split into two types. So the first one I'm going to call nominal. And the second type of categorical data is called ordinal. And I'm hoping you're getting some clues about what these words mean. So the nom refers to things that are named. So that could be if we did a survey of everyone in the class and we counted how many people had blue eyes and how many people had green eyes and how many people had brown eyes, etc. Then those categories, the eye color is the named category. And the way that we would compare those categories is by essentially counting how many instances or data collections of each category there are. Ordinal is very similar to nominal. These tend to have named categories rather than measured categories. But the difference between these, and there's a clue in the word, ord, these are ordered categories. So these have an order. So that could be things like on a survey, sometimes, always, never, in a race, first, second, third. We understand they relate to numbers, but they are just categories, and we understand that the person that was first was the fastest runner, whatever it is. In the same way, bronze, silver, gold is another ordinal way to categorize those things. I think the more examples that we come across, the more it will sort of make sense. Okay, so on the numerical side, we have two types again. So the first type, discrete. I hope I've spelled that right. We've got discrete numerical data, and the other type is continuous. Okay, and the difference between these is, well, the easy way to work it out is discrete is things that we count, and continuous is things that we measure. And so just to give an example, discrete could be if we surveyed everyone and asked how many games consoles do you have at home, or how many brothers and sisters. So it is a category. It is a category, but the actual data we collect is a number. So that's the important thing to remember. If the data is a number before we count it, then it's numerical data. Discrete essentially means so in counting, there's a clue. Whole numbers, so 1, 2, 3 are possible numerical discrete values, but 1.5 isn't. 1.68234. It's somewhere between 1 and 2, and that's sort of what it means by its specific values. Whereas continuous is stuff that we measure. So any length, so if we measure in centimeters, the actual length could be 1.6 centimeters, and that is still a measure in centimeters. But because depending on our measuring accuracy, we could measure many, many decimal points, because the scale that we use is essentially a continuous scale. There aren't sort of specific points on it that we are counting, which is the discrete. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so what I'm going to do is prepare the next little explanation of these categories. Before I write that out, it's probably worth mentioning that when you are asked what type of data is a specific question, then you'll need to say either categorical or numerical, and then you need to add, if it's numerical, either numerical discrete, numerical continuous, or if it's the other one, categorical nominal, categorical ordinal. So whenever you get asked what sort of data is it, it's going to be one of these four, but we need to also mention which subcategory it's in, and then, shouldn't use the word category, which subgroup it's in, and then what type of data it is once it's in that group. Okay, so here is a little representation of a questionnaire in the textbook, just to give examples. So the first question, indicate your level of agreement with the following statement. It should be illegal to smoke cigarettes in public. And our options, the data, actual data being collected, is either strongly agree, unsure, disagree, strongly disagree. Second question, what mode of transport did you use to get to college today? Self-drive, others car, bicycle, bus, walk. Question 3, how many text messages did you send yesterday? Question 4, what's your height in centimeters? So we've got 4 questions, and each one is an example of each of those types. So as we sort of go through and work out which one's which, I will indicate. Okay, so in our categorical data, so first of all, question 1 and 2 are both, and let's write it this way. I hope you can see that. Question 1 and 2 are categorical because our possible responses are essentially a box that we have to tick. We pick one of the boxes, and that is the category that we are picking. Now, to further go split them up. Self-drive, others car, bicycle, bus, walk. These are just named categories. I suppose we could order them in how fast they went, but we're not really interested in that. So question 2 is nominal. So if you're asked what sort of data is question 2, you would say categorical, nominal. Question 1 is categorical, but because strongly agree, unsure, disagree, strongly disagree, we sort of understand that there is an order to that, or a scale that we could say these are the happy people, these are the non-smokers, these are the smokers, and there is a scale, an order that those really go in. So this is categorical, ordinal. Simply because of all the possible options we have, we understand that there's an order that they go in. Okay, I think if the top 2 questions are categorical, we can guess that these are numerical. I hope that comes up. And so we've got one of each. Looking at question 3, how many text messages did you send yesterday? Essentially, we're just counting how many text messages, and there is no possible way that you could send half a text message, or 3/4 of a text message, or 0.75 of a text message. So this type of question, because the answer is expecting a number, that's what makes it numerical, and because we can only have whole numbers of text messages, things that we are counting, this is numerical discrete. And finally, so something we count, so the last category is going to be numerical continuous, and that's because it's something that we measure rather than something that we count. So what's your height in centimeters? It's numerical continuous. Although it does ask for centimeters, we don't necessarily have to round to a whole number of centimeters. We could measure and go, oh, I'm 183.6 centimeters, if you can measure accurately enough, and that is still in centimeters. Okay, so there's just some examples of the types of data, or the types of data that can be collected in each of those categories. Okay, so here is the first example questions, and really we just have to decipher what type of data it is. So there's a list of different types of questions. I've written them out. I've summarized a little bit from what's in the book. So let's just go through them one at a time. So in the book it says the color choice that customers made for a fashion item is recorded by a store owner for future reference. So their customers come through, they pick a color choice, and the person is just recording how many people pick each color. So that is definitely, I'm just going to put a capital C for categorical. Actually, down here, I just might write C. categorical, N is numerical, and then we've got two options for each of these. So we have N for nominal, O for ordinal, numerical we've got D for discrete, and C for continuous. So I'm going to either have C or N for each of these, and then depending on which one it is, it will be one of those two. So this is categorical and it's nominal. So I'm just going to write it that way to save time. Okay, so the second question. B, a group of students were asked the question, do you ever sing aloud in a private setting? And the options given were never, rarely, sometimes, often. So these are indeed categories, so it's categorical. But because we know that anyone who picks sometimes, they definitely sing more than someone who sings rarely, but probably less than someone who sings often, we understand that this is an ordered group of categories. So this is categorical, ordinal. Question C. People enrolling in a conference were asked their preference of music for the conference dinner. And they were given the choices of country, rock, dance, or pop. So again, these are categories that each person has the opportunity to choose from. But there isn't really an order to these categories. I suppose you could order them in terms of what year they were popular, but we're just interested in people's choice preference. So this is categorical, and these are just named categories. So it's categorical, nominal. Question D, the weight of a sample of biscuits in a factory. Factory production line are checked. So the biscuit factory, maybe every 1,000 biscuits that goes past, they pick out 10 and they weigh them just to make sure that the biscuit machines are making all the biscuits the same. So what to recognise here is the thing, what the actual data is we're measuring, and it is the weight. So weight isn't something that we count, where it's an actual measurement. So this is numerical, because the weight of something is going to be a number. And we don't know how many biscuits they're weighing. They might weigh them in kilograms or grams, and we don't know how many decimal places. So weight is a continuous amount. So that is numerical continuous, because we're measuring, not counting. Okay, question E. The number of commuters in each car passing a city tollway is counted. So there's someone sitting on the side of the road, and each time the car stops, they go, oh, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's probably too many to be squashed into a car. But they're never going to count 0.738 of a person. It's just whole numbers of people. So, and we're not interested in who the people are, we're just counting how many. So that's going to be a number, and because we counted, it's a discrete, numerical discrete data. The next question, F. The times of 40 athletes over a 100-metre sprint is measured and recorded. So we've got a number here, 40 athletes. We've got a number here, but we have to recognize that and ask ourselves, what is the actual data being recorded? And it is the times that each of these athletes took to run 100 meters. And because we can measure time in minutes, seconds, milliseconds, depending on the accuracy of how you're measuring it, that is a continuous measurement. Again, it's a measurement. So this is numerical, because it's going to come out as a number, and it's continuous because it's just dependent on how accurate our measurement of time is. At the Olympics, I'm sure it's more accurate than at the sports carnival. Okay, the last one, G. A group of students is shown a film and then asked if they thought the film was likely to be fantasy, fiction, based on real life, or a true account. Again, so this is the actual data we're collecting, each student's interpretation of the film. So these are categories, so it's categorical, and we could mix these up. It wouldn't matter what order they are in. So these are not ordinal, this is categorical, nominal. Okay, so as far as types of data goes, that's where we're going to stop.